Before the race has even begun, I got punted into the bus stop chicane and had to rejoin the race being dead last. Got a good draft on the Kemmel straight and carried out an easy pass on this Ferrari. Thankfully, he didn't put up a fight. Coming out of Lacombe, there was another Ferrari, spinning on the left-hand side of the track. Lifting a little bit helped clearing the accident, but every little blip in the throttle has the chance to give up my momentum, creating a dangerous situation where the driver behind can get a good run on me. Thankfully it did not happen, and the guys in front of me were in a huge fight, making themselves slower than necessary. Even though this is the beginning of the race, I could already see I have much better pace than this field. I started checking each corner for weaknesses so I can capitalize on that later. The Mercedes did a pretty bold move on that red Ferrari into Stavelot, but they got away with it just fine. It did slow ladder on the corner exit though, making me choose between going for it in the second part of this section or just lifting a bit and joining back in the draft. Well, I opted for the second option, but in hindsight, this could have gone much worse. The car behind me got a really good exit compared to my compromised one. Going into Blanchiment, I figured I would not take a defensive line and cause more havoc, rather just sit back and if needed, we go too wide. As you can see, it worked out well and I arrived to the chicane with some extra momentum. I trail braked on the outside, forcing the Ferrari to compromise his exit, and I could open the throttle a bit earlier. Going head to head on the main straight, I knew Giovanni already lost this position. I anticipated him going deep into the corner, so I figured I should take a wide line, but then Terry was still fighting with Aram in the Mercedes, so his line was compromised too. My exit wasn't perfect, but I still managed to overtake that red Ferrari and get a good run on the Kemmel straight again, which was very fortunate, as I hate going too wide into Eau Rouge. As before, this Ferrari wasn't fighting me too hard into Lacombe, and after a clean overtake, I was now in P14, hunting down Aram in the Mercedes again. Going into Pohon, I noticed how much faster I was. It was almost like I had more confidence in the turn-in and not missing the apex on the entry, giving me a better exit towards Piff Paff. Now Piff Paff was a challenge this day for the field. I could see how much slower is everybody on the entry, and I basically arrived onto the bumper of Aram into Stavelot. I showed my car on the inside, trying to scare Aram, and it actually worked. I was surprised that he reacted to that and voluntarily took a bad line into Stavelot. He basically sacrificed the whole run towards Blanchiment in order to defend his position. Now I'm not saying I wouldn't have gone for that gap if he overshot his turn-in, but I wasn't planning on doing that. Anyway, he still had better top speed, but the draft helped me stay close and go for a move into the chicane. As before, I went around on the outside, giving him just enough space on the entry. Fair, but tough. As you can see, he was flashing the headlights, which I have no idea if was a sign of frustration or trying to go for revenge. By this time, I was already planning the moves on the upcoming pack of cars, but first I had to survive the Kemmel straight with Aram having my draft. It went smoothly and I could see the guys in front fighting. I knew it wasn't much longer until I catch up. With each corner, I shaved tenths off the gap, especially in rivage and piff-paff. As I said, this field was particularly slow into that. By the time we reached the back straight, I was already close enough for a draft. But even I did not anticipate how bad they messed up the braking zone towards the chicane. I was so far back, I figured I can take my normal braking point and go for another few corners of qualification pace, but now I suddenly arrived and had to be super mindful of Kyle's red Ferrari on the inside. He made a very opportunistic and aggressive move into turn 1. He basically compromised the exit of Will, while I could still do a pretty normal line. I was super close on the exit and really wanted to get ahead as soon as possible, but it was evident that Will is going to have the same draft on the straight. I was a bit worried that Aaron can catch up if this fight takes too long. If Kyle went a little bit deeper into Lacombe, I could have followed him, but I noticed laps ago that the Ferraris take a very conservative braking point. And it happened the same way. Even though I started braking earlier to give them space, I still had to smash the brakes before the turn to avoid contact with Will. Again, into rivage, I was hoping I could follow the inside car, but these two weren't significantly faster than each other, so I was a sitting duck behind them, hoping that Aaron will spare my life. Will overtook Kyle, taking back P11, and I had to back out even more before this left-hander. It was a very intensive battle, and I had no idea how this was going to end. Trying to scare Kyle here, but it does not work. At this point Aaron caught up and so did Giovanni, so it was all or nothing. I either go and run away from this pack or die trying, as those guys will not be sitting behind me for 13 more laps, that's for sure. I go a bit conservative into piff-paff just in case, but then I see the GTP cars catching quickly. This is the worst part of the track to get overtaken, as it will compromise the whole run towards Blanchiment. Luckily, this time they were patient enough to wait another turn and fly past in peace, without disturbing our fight. I deliberately took a wide line here, as I feared the GTP will punt me otherwise. And I saw that many more cars will be coming, so I started pushing towards the field in front. Braking into the chicane worked out perfectly. I could do a clean run onto the main straight, not losing any time to Kyle or Aaron. Leaving a little bit of space here for the GTP on the outside, but it was not bad at all. I could accelerate just fine. I was so close to Kyle that I even had to let off the throttle into Eau Rouge to avoid contact and a very messy accident. I already knew I was going to win this position now, but that's when I saw the rear end of that Ferrari stepping in out, and I was hoping that he doesn't take me with him. Well, I survived, but some did not. I had such a good run this time that I essentially closed the gap completely to Will. As said before, his braking was a bit off here and I could easily follow him without pushing too much. So out of rivage, I saw that the GTP is trying to go for it and I deliberately accelerated wide and early to dissipate any idea of him doing that. Because of this I was so close to Will, I had to brake a little bit earlier, but managed to carry much more speed through no name here. I was probably just a few centimeters away from his bumper by the time all the GTPs had passed and I quickly opted for the move down the inside into Pujon. There wasn't much he could do, there's no chance of going around on the outside here with missing the apex. P11. Now I had to keep my head down and manage traffic wisely, not losing a lot of time. As you can see, I immediately did lose a lot into and out of Stavelot. Very unfortunate timing from the GTP field, but it is how it is in multi-class racing. I was lucky enough to steal some draft from them at least, not giving Will a chance to take back the position. I noticed that accident on the inside of the chicane, so just in case, I took a really wide line there, trying to avoid any kind of a contact if that driver tries to rejoin while all the cars are coming. I bet Will thought that this is his chance, and to be honest, I did too. With all the GTPs away, I had to put in an extra clean lap or Will was going to take it back. Now, the thing is that if you are way too close towards Eau Rouge, you catch up on the Kemmel too early and miss out on the draft for the majority of the straight. This happened to Will too, so he could not go for an overtake into Lacoon. I still had to brake deep and late, but it made defending much easier. I had to focus in the middle sectors, not making any mistakes so I can build a gap healthy enough to cripple any overtaking attempt from behind. The upside of being stuck in a much slower traffic is the tire degradation. The temperature and pressure was brilliant. I still had massive grip in every corner, while others started to lose it after overdriving it for laps. I noticed the gap shrinking to Mark in front. Will messed up Stavelot, so by the end of the lap, he was down by 2 seconds. I could finally concentrate on the next car. Some of the GTPs had pitted, so it was getting busy on the track again, but I also saw that the Porsche up front had some top speed issues, so I didn't worry too much. He was almost 2 seconds slower per lap, so out of Pohon I already had to plan my move. Well, it almost all went away in the blink of an eye. This car wasn't damaged or anything, the driver was just way too slow, creating dangerous situations. I had to straighten the steering and smash to brakes because of this early braking. I was already happy with making up 8 places, but I could not survive the whole race behind such a driver, so I really had to make a move stick. Fortunately, he was extremely slow in Blanchiment and basically caught up before the chicane. He braked a lot earlier, as usual, and I could easily get past. He tried to go for a switcheroo, but ended up letting me go into turn 1. Little did I know that I will bin the car a few laps later while fighting for P6, but this was a good first stint to the race.